active and passive voice. I'll upload this lesson in 3 parts for the ease of your downloading it. So it's one lesson, but in 3 parts. Active and passive voice. The teacher praised the student. The student was praised by the teacher. Voice is a grammatical category that applies to verb, which is the relationship of the subject to the action. So, voice has 2 values. Active, the subject does the action, and passive, the subject receives the action. In a way, receives the action. We'll see that the subject still does the action, but it is in place of an object, so it looks like that it is receiving the action. So, for example, Shakespeare wrote Hamlet. Hamlet is a famous play. I doubt that you know a lot about it. And it becomes in passive. Hamlet was written by Shakespeare. So we see that wrote is the action, is the verb. Shakespeare wrote the Hamlet. So the writing is on a Hamlet. Now, Hamlet was written by Shakespeare. It is still written by Shakespeare. Writing is still on Hamlet, not the vice versa. The active voice usually used in writing and speaking because it's more direct, it's more clear. The subject is clear. The object also is clear. For example, cats eat mice. Mice is the object, cats is the subject, and it's quite clear that cats eat mice. We know who or what is eating the mice. In passive, it becomes mice are eaten by cats. Mice are still eaten by cats, not the opposite. Mice is not eating the cat. The cat is still eating the mice, but it's just in another form or in another structure. Why? We'll see later that we have several conditions and circumstances that we need to use passive voice. Note, in English we have 2 types of verbs, intransitive and transitive. Intransitive verbs, the verbs with no object, or at least direct object, while transitive verbs has at least one object. So, because intransitive verbs have no object, we can not put them in passive. For example, Johnny laughed. No object. A complete sentence with no object. Anton got up late. People stayed in shelters. Here, complement is not the object. It's just completion of the meaning of the sentence. By the way, please don't confuse between complement here with E, which is from complete, and complement here with I, which is something like greetings. Now, how do we make passive? The basic structure of passive clauses, or at least supposed very simple, to be very simple. Subject, auxiliary verb, always verb to be, but in different forms according to the tense or the time of the sentence. Main verb, always in past participle, always. And this is optional by the agent. The agent here is The original subject, sometimes called the doer. In active voice, the subject is the person or thing responsible for the action of the verb. Now, the auxiliary verb is conjugated in all tenses, as we said before, while the main verb is always in past participle. The agent is the doer, is the original subject doing the action. For example, I am employed by Apple. Apple here is the famous company of the computer. You will be walking at 6 o'clock. It will have been finished by then. We have been notified by head office, and so on. Auxiliary verb, verb to be, and in verbs in past participle or in past participle. So we should know the conjugation of verbs, particularly the irregular verbs. Auxiliary verb can be conjugated for all persons and tenses, as we see here. I, you, it, we, you, they. Main verb is invariable past participle. Invariable means not changeable, always in past participle. If there is an agent, Apple or head, the doer, the original subject, it is introduced by the letter by, which is mean this term refers to the original subject, Apple or head office or anyone. Negative and questions. Also, passive voice in all tenses can be put to make negative sentences, question sentences, and negative questions sentences. How? We'll see now. This is negative. You, the subject, will never. This is the negative. I mean, this makes the sentence in negative. Be employed by us. You are not paid to watch YouTube. Not. You are verb to be, auxiliary verb to be, in different forms according to the tense. Are they cleaned regularly? Has your wallet been installing? Question. Affirmative. Here, question negative. Is he not notified immediately? Will they not be dismissed? Haven't, have not. They been forgotten? Always in past participle. Let's notice here paid, stolen, forgotten, irregular verbs. So we should know all about irregular verbs. The uses of passive. As we said earlier, there are some conditions or circumstances that we need to use passive in them rather than active. Although active is more direct and is better, but sometimes passive becomes better or more necessary. When we want to emphasize on the receiver of the action, on the receiver of that's the object, the original object of the sentence. President Kennedy was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. Certainly, President Kennedy is more important than Lee Harvey Oswald. His killing is more important than Lee Harvey Oswald being the killer. So, to make the sentence more attractive, more thrilling, President Kennedy was put in the beginning of the sentence to become in passive. President Kennedy was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. We want to focus on the President Kennedy being killed rather than Lee Harvey Oswald killing President Kennedy. This is always used in media and in press. Second, we don't know who did the action. The agent, the doer, the original subject. My wallet has been stolen. Someone, anybody, has stolen my wallet. So I don't know. Instead of saying somebody has stolen my wallet, it's more meaningful to say my wallet has been stolen. Concentrating on wallet being stolen. I don't know who stole it. Or uh, when knowing who stole my wallet, for example, Zeki stole my wallet. So and so stole my wallet. Third, when we think the agent is not important or interesting, the agent here, the doer, is not important. Our house is being painted. So the important thing is that our house was painted, become a clean and beautiful house. There is no need to say who painted our house or what, or so we are saying that our house is being painted rather than Crown Paints Company is painting our house. The Crown Paints Company for us, not for the world, not in trade, not in the market, but for us, is not important to be mentioned. The more important thing is that our house is being painted. Fourth, the agent is obvious, known to everybody, or known to the people listening. I am paid weekly, so suppose that the people or someone who is listening to me know where I work. So my company, my college, my government, my club, whoever pays me weekly. I want to focus on being paid weekly rather than monthly, rather than daily, rather than annually, which is mean every year, or sporadically according to working. It is said I want to say I am paid weekly. It's better than saying my company pays me weekly, because the listener knows that I work for such company, or I work for the technical college, or work for the government, and so on. Fifth, we are making general statements or announcements, usually used by the government, by companies, by general establishments or state establishments. Passengers are reminded to fasten their seat belts. Passengers are reminded to fasten their seat belts. The captain reminds passengers. The company, the flight company, the aviation authority, whoever reminds the passengers to fasten their seat belts. So it is a general statement that the passenger sitting in an airplane should fasten their seat belts, and they are reminded. Usually this is a formal writing, a formal way of saying the passenger are reminded to fasten their belts. Maybe in a report, maybe in an instruction brochure, and so on. Sixth, The agent is everyone. Is everyone. Most of the people, all the people. The emergency services can be called by dialing 104. The emergency services can be called by dialing 104. So everyone can, anyone in need of emergency, of help, of aid can call the emergency service by dialing 104. So instead of saying the public can call the emergency service by dialing 104, or the people in the case of emergency or whatever, it is better said that the emergency services can be called by dialing 104 because the agent is everyone, the doer is everyone, or applies to everyone. We are writing formal or scientific text. In formal or scientific text and experiments and research, it's better to say what we are doing rather than who is doing what. For example, potassium was added and mixed in. The solution was heated to 80 degrees centigrade and then allowed to cool. So this is steps of an experiment, of a research. It's better to put in steps in passive voice rather than saying the technician, the researcher, the teacher, the student, or whoever. This is more general. Everybody can read and can apply rather than saying Zeki added potassium and mix it in. Unless this is the first time that anyone in the world knew what is doing, what is he doing, or what is he discovering, maybe we can put it to his name. But as it is in general, steps of an experiment, everybody can do, everybody can apply, so it's better to be put in passive rather than in active. The technician added potassium and mixed it in. The technician heated the solution to 80 degrees centigrade and then allowed it to cool. It's not as strong or as appealing as saying potassium was added and mixed in. The solution was heated to 80 degrees centigrade and then allowed to cool. Also, it is for the future, for the other students, researchers, to know what to do. 8. We want to avoid responsibility for our own actions typically found in government reports. In a certain report, we want to say what happened rather than who did what. Mistakes were made and unfortunately never rectified. Mistakes, whether mistakes were made in economy, in flying, in flights, in war, and whatever. We don't know, we don't want to say the Prime Minister made mistakes and unfortunately never rectified them. The government made mistakes and never rectified them. The director made mistakes and the head of the company, the CEO, made mistakes and never rectified them. The team manager and so on. So we want to say only in general without laying the blame on anyone else. It's better made in passive voice. So, how do we make passive voice? The structure of passive voice wanted by someone. For the structure of passive voice, let's see how we can make passive voice and distinguish it from active voice. In many aspects of life, especially in science, although we want the objectivity in speaking or writing, sometimes we need to put it in passive voice. So what has been done is more important than who did it, for example. So the writers favor passive voice than active voice. Active voice is who is doing what, or the subject now is acting the verb. While in passive, what is being done to whom, or the action, verb, is being done. The subject is still the one doing the action, but the subject is now harder to locate or little ambiguous within the sentence. For example, last year, French FA, that's Football Association, subject, nominated verb Platini, object, to the FIFA presidency. FIFA is the world football governing body. His Italian opponent, subject, put, verb, action. Television ads is the abbreviation of advertisements. Depicting Platini in bribe cases, depicting, showing, or featuring bribe cases, that's dirty money. FIFA General Assembly, subject, who were not amused by the ads, didn't get along with it, didn't like it, voted, verb, for his Italian opponent. Therefore he, Platini, subject, lost, and FIFA showed their zero tolerance toward fraud. Zero tolerance, there is no acceptance at all. Another example, Judy, subject, kicked, verb, the ball, object. Those two examples are inactive. So, to change them into passive, how will they look like? Last year, Platini, the object, became here in place of the subject, was nominated, verb, the same verb but in a different form, past participle, verb to be, by French FA, the subject, the original subject, to run for FIFA presidency. Television ads, the original object, became in place of the subject, featuring him, showing him, and bribe cases were placed, verb, past participle, verb to be, by his opponent, the subject, original subject. So he, Platini, was not voted for by FIFA General Assembly, who were not the FIFA General Assembly or the voters, not amused by the ads. Therefore, Platini was not elected by voters, and FIFA showed their zero tolerance toward fraud. Now, the second sentence is rather easier. The ball object, the original object, was kicked by Judy. So we see here the structure of passive voice is putting the object in the place of the subject, verb to be, past participle, and the object and the subject and the complement. The subject usually preceded by, or it comes after the letter by. There are some clues to look for to know whether the sentence is in passive or in active. Passive sentences frequently begin with it is, there is, there are, because simply the subject is, the origin subject is at the end of the sentence or even omitted. For example, there is one reason Platini was not chosen for FIFA presidency. Television ads featuring him in bribe cases. Second, passive sentences usually contain a form of the verb to be, because as it was said earlier, the verb, the action, should be in past participle preceded by verb to be. There must be a form of verb to be in the sentence to become passive voice. So the verb to be should be used in any form suitable for the sentence in front of the acting verb in the sentence. Example, television ads featuring Platini in bribe cases were placed by his opponent. It's worth to note that verb to be should be in a form suitable for the object and suitable for the tense of the sentence. Passive sentences may be wordy. That means have more sentences, more words, and more details. So, read over what has been written. That's the two sentences before, and see if some of the phrases could be more concise. That's more summarized, less wordy. Example, television ads were placed by his opponent's supporters that featured him taking bribes. More concise. His opponent's supporters placed television ads featuring him taking bribes. This is in active, this is in passive. Fourth, active phrases are direct. It is known for sure who is doing what, while in passive phrases it is indirect. That's the subject of the sentence is harder to identify because it's either omitted or at the end of the sentence or within the sentence. So check to see if the person or thing doing the action is at the beginning of the phrase. If the person doing this thing, doing the action, is at the beginning of the phrase, then it is in active, while if it is omitted or in another place, then it is in passive. Let's see. The election was held by officials on a Tuesday. Where's the subject? The original subject. The official did the action. They organized or held the election. So inactive becomes official held the election on a Tuesday. Inactive. Here's the subject. Fifth, in passive sentences, often, but not always, include the word by before the subject. Examples. The picnic was organized by students of the technical college. Students of the technical college organized the picnic. This is the active, while this is in passive, by the students. Now, we have some verbs with two objects. As it was said earlier, in the English language, there are two types of verbs, intransitive and transitives. Verbs with no objects, verbs with object. Some of the verbs take more than one object, like the verb give. For example, he gave me the book. Me, the book. Two objects. The verb gave fell on two objects, me and the book. So you can choose either of the two objects to be the subject of the passive sentence. As it was said earlier, this is not the real subject in place of the subject. So, which is more important? Which is more essential to focus upon is put in place of the subject. So it can be made as I was given the book, because the speaker wants to concentrate on the first object, me. I was given the book by him. While sometimes we need to concentrate on the other object. The book was given to me by him. Other verbs like this are ask, offer, teach, tell, lend, promise, sell, throw, and other ones. They take more than one object. So one should take notice of that and decide which object is more important or is to be focused upon. The passive in subordinate clauses. Subordinate clauses means a clause, maybe a sentence, within the context, within the speech. It is a full sentence within the speech. So how can we deal with them in passive? Just consider them as a sentence, as a full sentence. For example, I thought that Mary had killed John. Mary had killed John. A full sentence, full meaning. So we can make it in a passive. John, object, killed, verb, action, Mary, the subject. It becomes John had been killed, verb to be, imperfect, by Mary. Another example, he knew that people had built the church in 1915. The church had been built in 1915. It seems that someone cleaned the office yesterday. The office was verb to be, cleaned yesterday, adverb of time. Yesterday, adverb of time. Active. John likes someone to promote him. John likes someone to promote him. Promote mean making higher in payment, in salary, or in position. So in passive it becomes John would like to be promoted. Be promoted. Maybe we have more than one subordinate clause. It's all the same rule. Take it as a sentence, as discrete sentence. That means separate sentence. Now we have some examples or a summary for all the tenses of the passive voice, the active and passive voice. This should be studied well because it showed what to do in each case. So in simple tenses, present, once a week Tom cleans the house. Once a week, the house is verb to be in present, cleaned, past participle by Tom. Present continuous. Right now, Sarah is writing the letter. Is writing the letter. So Sarah becomes at the end of the sentence. The letter comes here. So the letter is. What form of verb to be should be being written by Sarah. Simple past, Sam repaired the car. The car was repaired by Sam. Past continuous. The salesman was helping the customer when the thief came into the store. The customer was being helped by the salesman when the thief came into the store. Present perfect. Many tourists have visited that castle. That castle has been visited by many tourists. So let's notice something important. Many tourists, the subject is in plural, so it takes have. it takes have. While when making it in passive voice, the castle is single, so it takes has, not have, has. Present perfect continuous. Recently, John has been doing the work. Recently, the work has been being done by John. Past perfect. George had repaired many cars before he received his mechanic's license. Many cars had been repaired by George before he received his mechanical license. Past perfect simple future rule. Someone will finish the work by 5 o'clock p.m. The work will be finished by. Verb to be, past participle. Simple future, be going to. Sometimes we use going to instead of will to show that the time is future. Sally is going to make a beautiful dinner tonight. So a beautiful dinner is going to be made by Sally. This verb to be has nothing to do with passive. This is a term. Be going to, is going to, Sally is going to do, they are going to do, and so on. But this verb should be in the form of be because it is preceded by to. Future continuous will. This is sometimes or less used in English. At 8 o'clock p.m. tonight, John will be washing the dishes. At 8 o'clock p.m. tonight, the dishes will be being washed by John. Probably John has a strict wife, a very, very tough wife that give him the orders. Now, future continuous be going to. No, sorry, this is repeated. Future perfect. They will have completed the project before the deadline. The project will have been completed before the deadline. And so on. Now let's see. Used to. Jerry used to pay the bills. Used to pay the bills. The bills used to be paid by Jerry. Would always. My mother would always make the pies. The pies would always be made by my mother. Future in the past. Would. I knew John would finish the work by 5 p.m. I knew the work would be finished by John. Would sometimes used for future in the past, speaking about something that was expected to be finished in the past, or sometimes it is used to show that something is less possible. Future in the past was going to. I thought Sally was going to make a beautiful dinner tonight. I thought a beautiful dinner was going to be made is the same as is going, but this is in the past. Future continuous, be going to, is the same as before. Now, there are some specific cases. If we have a gerund, infinitive, I insisted on them paying me. I insisted. This is the gerund. I insisted on them paying me. I insisted on being paid. Going to. Is he going to sing Thriller at the party? Is Thriller going to be sung at the party? Used to. We took it. Can. They can question him for 6 hours. He can be questioned for 6 hours. Could. It could have badly hurt you. You could have been badly hurt. May and might. The papers say they may release him. The papers say may be released from jail or from anyway. Might is the same. Must. Passengers must wear seat belts. Seat belts must be worn. Should is the same as would, but this is something that more assuring. You should have told me. I should have been told. Ought to, just something like must, the same meaning. They ought to forgive him. They ought to be forgiven. He ought to be forgiven. That's it for now, and I hope that this lesson is beneficial. I am ready for your questions. I am ready for your criticisms. I am ready for your proposals or suggestion to make it better for you, to make it more, let's say, more understandable and better comprehend by you. So please send me your remarks, and we'll make some practice and some assignment about passive and active voice, hopefully. Thank you very much.